Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Behind the Scenes Part 2 at the prop making. Today we are going to be going over how to properly corpse a skeleton. It is a long process, so we're just going to do it step by step. And for this episode specifically, I'm going to be showing you how to corpse a skull. Okay, so to give you an idea of what we're going to be working with here, I laid out all of our materials on the table. First and foremost, we do have the skull. This is a regular human skull that you can find online. I got this one on Amazon, and it was just a cheap $20 skull. You really don't need to spend a lot of money on these things because they're going to be all covered up and painted. So you want to go with kind of a cheaper model, which this one is. On the table here is, this is all cotton. I took some cotton balls and I kind of laid them all out and webbed them a little bit because this is going to be all the scarring and the tissue that is going to be going on the skull. And I'll show you how that process works in a little bit. But I have all the cotton that's laid out on the table. That is going to be basically the facial and skull tissue that will be covering the top part of this skeleton. We have gloves that we are going to be working with because we are going to do a couple paint jobs, and we're going to be dealing with some epoxy and other fun stuff. Here I've got all the different paints. This is a brownish color that will be on the skull. That's one of the first colors that goes on first. I got a mixing container here, paint brushes, some different colors of paint which I'll go over, and then we've got, this is a jar of epoxy which will go on the skull first. Actually, this is the liquid latex rubber, which is going to make all of this stick to this. And that's what goes on first. But anyway, that's all the materials that we have, and we'll go through this step by step. Basically, after I put all the liquid latex on the skull, I'm taking all of this cotton and I'm moving it around the skull because the cotton is what's going to be on the skull to make it look like burnt flesh. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of shaping all this cotton to fit on the skull as if it was burned flesh. Basically, what the cotton is doing is, it's supposed to be the flesh, but it's also supposed to make the skull kind of mummified, which is kind of what you want. A really cool thing is you don't want the cotton to cover the entire skull, because if your flesh is burning, you kind of want to leave these kind of little indents where there is actual skull exposed, like here. So we're kind of like, this one almost looks like, if you can see, it looks like the number 8. We're not covering the entire thing, but we want to cover most of it for the project. Okay, so now the skull is pretty much done as far as the liquid latex goes. I really spent a couple hours working on this thing, longer than I thought I would, but I really wanted to, detail this thing as much as possible. Notice I wanted to make some of the webbing effects that it would look like if your skin was actually burned off. So that actually took longer than I thought it would, and I didn't cover the entire skull for purposes that I'll go into later, but I really wanted to leave some spaces open so that when we do paint it, you can kind of see some of the bone that is exposed. So before I actually paint this thing, I'm going to let it dry for about 24 hours, and hopefully all of this latex should be totally dry by then. And then tomorrow we will go ahead and paint this sucker.